Hello, everybody. It's Great Grandmaster Dennis Ichikawa coming to you on this special occasion commemorating a very important year. As I began my martial arts training in 1970, this marks my 50th year in participation with American Tang Soo Do. And during this illustrious time of my life, my 50 years in martial arts, I reflect on many momentous occasions. And one of the occasions that pops into my mind is my chance to compete in a tournament alongside my instructor, Pat Johnson. As I was a red belt at the time and he was a third-degree black belt, it was the International Karate Championships in Long Beach, California. And I had a chance to participate in several internationals, and this was my fourth one. I made up a design form. My friend and I would practice together. He had his design form. We'd always compete against each other or with each other and always come up. We'd take turns taking first and second place with each other in forms competition as lower ranks and as green belts and as red belts. So we had worked very hard on creating these design forms, and eager anticipation went to the internationals, and we waited our requisite 4 or 5 hours before we competed. And we sat down and we found out at the last moment that our head judge was going to be Grandmaster Byung Yu, who was a very famous Taekwondo and Yangdo Wan practitioner. And we were kind of nervous because he was a Hall of Famer. So we sat down and there he came. Master Yu, he came walking up there and he sat us all down. He says, "This is Korean Forms Division." He goes, "I'm the head judge." He goes, "I want to see Korean forms." He says, "No Kung Fu, no Shotokan, just Korean forms." And he says, "I don't like design forms." My friend and I went, "Oh my gosh." We practiced for so long on these design forms, and we looked at each other. And after the forms competition started, we decided we're going to go ahead and do our form because that's what we practice for. So we got up, he did his form, and he messed up. He lost his balance on one of his movements. And this other guy got up and he was phenomenal. He did a Korean form and it was really a good form. It was a Taekwondo form, so I didn't know what it was, but he was really good. And then I got up and I did my design form. And then when they read off the scores, I scored 23.9. My friend scored 23.4. And the first place guy scored 24.1. So he beat me very closely. And then another guy came up and tied with me for second place. We both had the same score. So Byung Yu gets up and says, "Okay, Ichikawa, Smith, you guys tied for second place. Do a different form to break the tie." I went, "Okay." He says, "You have 5 minutes." So the only other form that I had even close in my repertoire was Basai. So I got up and I practiced my Basai. So I got up kind of with a little bit of an attitude like, okay, I got nothing to lose. I didn't win, so I'm going to give it my best. And I didn't practice it very much, but I know this form because I just tested with it. So I got up and I did my Basai, and I sat down and they read off the scores and I scored 24.5. Yes, it was higher than the first place score. So I won second place. I beat the tiebreaker, but I did the wrong form. I should have done Basai. I would have won first place in the International Karate Championships. So I learned that lesson. Then I had a chance to watch my instructor, Pat Johnson. I had never seen him do a form in competition. He taught me forms, but I had only seen him spar in competition. He was the captain of the Chuck Norris, undefeated Chuck Norris black belt team, so I got to see him spar many times. I was so impressed, but he said this is his last tournament, so he's going to do a form. And he did a form called Jion, which is one of our higher black belt forms. And I watched him with my mouth open. I was just in awe. It was just beautiful. He had the same situation that I did. Another guy came up and did a form 0.2 of a point higher than him. He and this other person tied for second place, just like I did. So he had 5 minutes to prepare another form, and he was doing a form I've never seen before, but I know now it was Chinte. So he got up and did a magnificent Chinte. He was tossing people around, and I was just in awe of that form. He was built short and stocky, so that was a perfect form for him. The same thing happened to him as what happened to me. His score, his tiebreaker score on Chinte was higher than the score he got on Jion, his first form. He picked the wrong form also, okay? So he took second place. and I took second place. So afterwards, I went up to him and I shook his hand. I said, Mr. Johnson, I said, I guess we learned a lesson. He goes, yes, my son. He called me my son, even though he was only 7 years older than me. He says, my son, we learned a lesson. Pick the right form. So that was a very good lesson I learned. And I use that. I tell my students the same thing. Make sure you pick the right form. Okay? Sometimes what you think is good is not going to score higher with the judges. So that is my competition with my instructor, and we got a little bit closer because of that situation. Okay? And that's my story.